It's been nearly 10 years since the Sonic Exe game released. In that amount of time, tons of EXE games have been put out. However, few have really stood out, especially in recent time. With the insane volume of these games that exist, it's no wonder why that's the case. However, there is one game in particular that does everything right: Sonic EYX. Sonic EYX is a game that was released 2 months ago by Cloudy Jolt Gamer and Kakwa16 for Luigikid's EXE Game Challenge. I also recommend you play it if you don't want to get spoiled. It's linked in the description and pinned comment below. At first glance, it may seem like a regular Creepypasta game. I mean, at this point we've seen it all before, right? Not exactly. From the intro alone, we can already notice that this won't be the most typical approach. Sonic's depiction here is much more akin to an eldritch horror monster than the typical red eyes and blood that we're used to. The singular eye and long, painfully stretched limbs make the creature look much more menacing. Even for a hedgehog, this depiction is extremely inhuman. The symbol on its chest comes off as some type of evil imagery as well. The game's imagery is by far one of its strongest points, and as we delve further into the game, we'll be able to see just how detailed and disturbing things can get. After this, we get a warning telling us that we need to quit the game while we still have the chance. This isn't something new, but I think it does give the player a sense of mystery. What exactly could this game have that causes it to be so evil? The first level depicted in the game begins very normally. The graphics are amazing here, and the way the assets at the bottom of the screen move up with you as you travel upward is a nice touch in my opinion. As Tails traverses through the level, subtle distortions and static will pop up every now and then. Even though everything seems happy now, the game isn't letting you forget what's looming in the distance. Eventually, Tails finally reaches the other side of the level, and when he does, he meets the Sonic that was mentioned before. The in-game sprite depiction of this Sonic automatically gives you the feeling that something is wrong by first glance. There's no doubt that whatever's about to happen cannot be good. The Sonic creature morphs back into its regular form and runs back to the start of the level. If the player attempts to keep running to the right, you get a well-made Easter egg of Sonic EXE pushing you down and laughing at you. It's a nice change of pace from the words "go back" on the screen or nothing at all. As Tails travels back, things slowly become more and more unsettling. First, a brief image flickers onto the screen. When examining it further, we see a version of Tails that has a similar symbol on its chest to the Sonic we've seen before. Along with that, this Tails no longer has any skin on its head. Great. Tails is also warning us not to go back, clearly having traveled back in some capacity to stop his old self from experiencing the suffering that he's been forced to endure. After this, the background also becomes much darker. A subtle addition that again shows that something very bad is coming up. Trying to turn around will cause an image of Sonic that says, "Meet me at the beginning," to show up. Again, we see him briefly morph into the creature that he's become. Tails now has hollowed out eyes and a sad expression, possibly representing the fact that he can't escape his fate. Not long after this, another image of the possessed Tails shows up, screaming for his purgatory to end. At this point, the background almost no longer exists. A soulless Tails now walks along until he finally meets Sonic. Immediately, this causes everything to lose its color except for him. Sonic also appears taller now, looking even more menacing as he looks down upon Tails from the top of the hill. He's effectively frozen the game, showing that the limitations of the code don't bind him. This leads to the disturbing realization that we don't know how much he could corrupt and destroy. After effectively destroying the game, it of course crashes, and when reloaded, we're greeted with this scene. Knuckles is staring directly at the player and proceeds to speak. He asks why the player enjoys making them suffer. What could they have done to deserve this type of treatment? You just love to see them suffer for absolutely no reason. It's just a game to you. They don't deserve this. Really, you do. Think about how many times you've watched these characters suffer. You're the one who deserves this pain. Someone is on the way to give you what you deserve. He is coming now. You then get an error that the game has failed to log into your current internet connection. Now some may brush this off, but this is another way the game is showing you that Sonic EYX is beyond the confines of the game. Immediately after Knuckles says he's coming, you get this error. He's attempting to get to you already. When loading into the game again, you appear as the character Ray. Ray is a flying squirrel that originally appeared in the 3-player arcade game Sega Sonic the Hedgehog or Sega Sonic Arcade, and has gone on to make appearances in the Archie comics, Sonic manga, and even Sonic Generations. I only say this because at first glance I genuinely thought that he was a custom character, but back to the topic at hand. Ray runs through this desolate purgatory, a giant eye watching his every move in the background. It reminds me heavily of the Uboa level from Yume Nikki, a game that I may talk about one day. Sonic eventually appears, first as a distorted face and then as a demonic being that's attempting to capture Ray. With tears filling his eyes, Ray desperately attempts to run away from the ever-approaching creature, but sadly, it's just not possible. After loading into the game again, we're stared at by the same eyes featured in the last level before my favorite level appears, Crystal Lake Zone. This is easily the most iconic area in the whole game, not just because of its phenomenal visuals, but mainly because of its beautiful soundtrack. This peaceful theme was taken from the 1993 RPG Shining Force 2, and it works insanely well in this area. This in itself is something we don't see much in EXE games as a whole. A lot of times the peaceful levels are very brief and don't use music from other games. However, in this game, the peaceful levels are longer, which helps in developing tension. After all, you always know what's approaching. I could go on forever about how much I enjoyed the graphics in this area and the cool background additions like Metal Sonic flying around, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for the scary stuff. We finally get the origins of how Sonic turned into the creature he's become. He runs away from whatever has possessed him, before we see an eyeless Sonic with presumably the demon possessing him smiling in the background. The window suddenly begins to move around erratically as the images of Knuckles and Tails' corrupted faces appear in the background as well. EYX is messing around more and more. This can't be good. An eyeless Sonic now traverses through the now abandoned Crystal Lake Zone. Did something wipe it out, or is this all in Sonic's corrupted mind? After getting to what should be the end of the level, Sonic proceeds to stare at the viewer. The fourth wall breaking that this game uses is executed in a phenomenal way. The characters always make sure there's no mistaking what's going on as anything but a direct shot at the player. It's easily one of my favorite aspects as well, as it causes you to be even more immersed in the terrifying plot. It zooms in before Sonic jumps down below the player's view. Before you can even question what he's doing, he pops out at you. Although jump scares are a cheap form of horror most of the time, if implemented properly, I do believe that they can actually benefit the viewer's experience. This is one of those times. Because Sonic leaves from view, you aren't expecting the scare as much as if it had just popped up on its own. On top of that, this again shows Sonic working beyond the confines of the game in order to terrify the player. After beating the now normal stage, Sonic will notice the capsule that the animals are typically trapped in. Before he can release them, a cutscene plays wherein Metal Sonic and Eggman stop him from saving the animals. Eggman laughs at the defeated Sonic before this happens. I'm not sure if Sonic actually used the creature in order to kill Dr. Eggman here, or if the creature broke into the game's normal cutscene sequence in order to do it, but either way, this scene is amazing. The imagery here of Eggman's death and the subsequent corrupted and downright terrifying images of the distorted Eggman staring at the player are something that nearly zero EXE games have done right. This again just reinforces what sets this game apart so much. When opening the game again, we're greeted with an eyeless Tails walking through what seems to be a dark cave. Tails looks directly at us before it shifts into a normal level. The level theme that's been playing in the background really sets the tone here as well. The hollow sounds of the water current as well as the tortured souls crying out in the distance create an air of loneliness, like Tails is the only sentient one left among a sea of husks that were destroyed long ago. Tails walks very slowly in this level. He's hesitant, or at least cautious, wondering if or when the demonic creature that used to be Sonic will attack him again. The screen continues to get darker and darker as Tails' fate seems more and more grim. Suddenly, EYX reaches up from behind the cave floor and pulls itself up. Tails' eyes widen, but as soon as it showed up, it went away. Tails looks around in fear before slowly walking again. When will it show up next? That thought is probably crushing him in an inescapable place like this. After walking for what seems like forever, he finally discovers what was inevitably waiting for him. EYX along with the destroyed corpse of what seems to be Tails himself. The creature slowly turns around before lunging at Tails and presumably taking his life. This screen reminds me of Kyle's death scream from Needle Mouse as well. It's very cinematic. When loading up the game again, EYX begins to talk directly to the player through text boxes. It says that soon the player will be able to meet everyone else that they've seen in the game before we're greeted with this screen. The two things that immediately jump out to me are the fact that Ray's image is the only one not destroyed and that there are still 7 more victims left. Who these could be is yet to be seen. And that signals the end of the game. A game that really did everything right. From the great sound design to the fourth wall breaking to the phenomenal imagery, it's hard to say that this isn't easily one of the best EXE games of all time. It just shows how there's still so much that can be done with the genre despite the fact that at first glance it may seem like everything has been done. Even if you just watched this entire video, I still recommend you experience the game for yourself, linked below. Stay tuned for my 50k sub special next week where I'll be talking about some genuinely scary creepypasta games, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.